Yo, my name's Toby, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to connect your Webasto Next wallbox to EVCC for proper surplus charging and in general just a well-working wallbox. Alright, so first up, what you will need your Webasto Next wallbox password, which you can find in the manual if I'm not mistaken, and that's about it. You also need EVCC running obviously, but there's plenty of tutorials for that. So I'm just gonna show you how to connect the wallbox. First things first, you will need to log into the web UI. This can be done by going to the IP address of the wallbox and then it will prompt you for a username and password. Username is lowercase admin and the password is the one you find in the manual, which is specific for each device. Once you're in this overview, you need to make sure that advanced mode is enabled, so you see all the settings we need. You can do that by clicking on the AD icon in the top right and hitting advanced view. Once you've done that, we can go over to authorization. In this, you will need to set free charging to enabled if you want to have the ability to charge guests' cars, for example, or like cars that you don't have registered in your EVCC. This does not mean that anybody can just walk onto your property and charge their vehicle without the need of authentication via EVCC, because that would only be the case if you didn't configure a backend or Modbus backend for the wallbox, but we will. Therefore, you can put that on and leave everything as is. Next up, for backend, in here this will be for OCPP operation, which is also possible using EVCC. You would just select OCPP. I will show you later, but we will use Modbus because via OCPP you don't have the ability to check the current power that goes into the car. Those are only supported via Modbus on this wallbox. That's why I'm going to use Modbus. But also OCPP is fairly easy, and if you have issues with Modbus, just use that instead. But it's straightforward. Anyways, next up, under load management, and that's where it's really important that you have advanced mode toggled on. You will find this box, which is usually on deactivate Modbus usage, but you need to do it on HEMS activated. Then the timeout and port, I left it on default. Of course, I am connected via wire. Anyways, after you did that, it's pretty much all configured. I assume that you were able to configure your network settings accordingly, so that you can reliably reach the wallbox either by having it in DHCP and IPv6 autoconfig mode, so it gets an address from your router and you set it to static or whatever in the router. Or the other way is to just configure static addresses in this network tab. So once you got that, there's one catch, which is of course I'm using IPv6 to access the wallbox, but when I last tested it on firmware version 3.0.5, it was not possible to access the Modbus interface via IPv6 for some reason. It only worked on IPv4, but now I'm on firmware version 3.1.16, I believe. And on this version I haven't tested it yet. But I just use IPv4 for now. Anyways, so that's pretty much all you have to configure for the wallbox. And then in EVCC, you will need to create a new entry for the wallbox. So you head over to the burger menu, hit configuration and toggle experimental mode in case it's not stable yet when you see the video. And then just add charger heater, charging point, give it a name, and then hit add charger. It will prompt you what you want to add. You can either do OCPP and it will tell you how to do it for the Webasto Next. But that cannot display the current, so I'm opting for the Webasto Next here via Modbus. It also filled in the port 502. You will put in some IP address, the one of your wallbox obviously, and then you hit validate. And at this stage, if you get errors like IO timeout error, or connection refused, or invalid operation, something with 2, I don't remember. This is most of the times because some other device was already like connected to the wallbox or trying to connect, and the Webasto Next only supports one device for the Modbus. Therefore, you cannot have it in Home Assistant and EVCC simultaneously, for example. But if you try reading the registers from your PC using some tool, this kind of thing just blocks the wallbox. Also, if you reset EVCC, it can happen. In that case, what I would do, what worked for me, is power down both devices, like EVCC and the wallbox, wait 2 minutes, power them back on, and then everything should work, and you should see a green light. And once you save that, I already did, so I'm just going into it here. It will ask you for a default mode. I set mine to off. You could also choose another default mode, but in my case the wallbox is exposed to the world, and therefore I don't want anyone just going up and grabbing the charger. Therefore I set it to off. Priority, it's also up to you. For like surplus charging, it also tells you here. Anyways, those settings you can configure yourself. Charger type minus 22 kilowatts, like 32 amps, and you could also do 11 and 3-phase obviously for this wallbox. And then you just hit save and everything should work. You should see something like this. And if you go over and you hit min and solar, for example, and you connect your vehicle, it should work. There was one issue I was facing, which was that after the car connected and it said connected, it didn't want to charge. It just stayed in a state where it said waiting for vehicle, and the LED bar on the wallbox itself, it was a green light running up and down. If that happens, check the firmware version, because for me, after setting the free charging and also upgrading the firmware to 3.1.16, it started working. When I tried free charging on the old firmware version, it didn't work. But like this, right now it works for me. And you should see the lights turning blue, and also simultaneously you should hear a clack from the relay, and also hear sound from the wallbox indicating that it's like ready to charge. And then you will see the current power here, and also that it's charging. Anyways, that's about it. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you're on an older firmware version and you cannot get the new version, just comment down below, we will find a solution. Anyways, thanks so much for kicking it in. I'll see you in the next video.